parrying is fun. It's one of those quintessential game mechanics that just feels so good to hit. The problem is, in most games, parrying isn't essential. It's often quite superfluous. It's one of those things that, you know, it feels cool to hit, but to be honest, I'm just gonna spam the light attack button. So, what if we made a game entirely around this mechanic? What if we made a game where you had to parry? Well, introduce it. Wait, hold up. Did you just say we built a game? I mean, yeah. Oh, like we is it multiple people? Yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah.
Like we is it someone actually wanted to work with you?
Well, that's a little condescending.
Like we is in someone looked at this and went, you know what's a good idea? I'll make a game with this guy, this dude, this fucking idiot. That's what you mean by we?
Now you're just being mean. I mean,
you're literally just me in a pink shirt. So what are you on about? Yeah. It's actually salmon. So
I feel like this bit is outstayed its welcome.
Yeah.
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 Two months ago, this man popped into my recommended, and I immediately knew I had to reach out to him. You see, the thing is, I kind of hate drawing. It's kind of the only part of game design that I don't enjoy, and Eli just so happens to be really good at it. So I flicked him an email, and a couple days later, we jumped on a Discord call and discussed business. Now, Eli is doing this thing where he is making a game every month for the whole of 2023. And he decided to join forces for this month's game. So we agreed that I would be in charge of doing the bulk of the programming and any of the music and sound effects. And Eli would be in charge of any art, environmental design, effects, and post-processing. And just like that, April Game was born. Just to be clear, April Game. We are finishing this game in April. By the end of April, this game is going to be completely... The plan was simple. We wanted to take the 2D top-down adventure aspects of games like Hyperlight Drifter and the early Zelda games, and then we wanted to take the parrying mechanic and just sort of The first thing we did was create the player's movement controller. Now, since the focus of the game is parrying, we wanted to design the player's moveset completely around this mechanic. The core philosophy was to make it impossible for the player to damage an enemy without first parrying. So instead of giving the player, you know, a more typical weapon like a sword or a gun, we instead gave the player a shield and 3 fundamental moves. Upon pressing right click, the player will lurch forward and temporarily block enemy attacks. Correctly landing a parry will not only stun enemies, but will also supercharge the player. This is cleverly shown by the player turning orange. And by cleverly, I mean we directly stole this from Celeste. Our Celeste. Once supercharged, the player is given access to the next fundamental move. Upon activating the dash, the player will hurtle forward, becoming temporarily invincible. If the player happens to collide with an enemy whilst dashing, depending on their health, they'll either be sent flying or instantly killed. Killing enemies will also recharge the player, allowing for extremely satisfying chains of murderous dashes. Not only is the dash the only way to kill enemies, but it also doubles as a really useful movement and platforming tool. The final move we added is This basically allows the player to send out a powerful shockwave that'll push back and stun any nearby enemies. It's extremely useful for crowd control, isolating enemies, and setting up juicy chain dashes. So with the moveset finalized, it was now time to create a variety of enemies to test and subsequently destroy the player. The first enemy we created was the basic enemy. This enemy has moderate health and will quickly dash towards the player when they come within a certain range. Pretty cool. Pretty scary.
The next enemy we created is the double dash enemy. Now this guy will follow the player around, and once in range, will dash at the player. Double. The first dash will be towards a random point nearby the player, and the next dash will be for the kill. This will test the player's reactions and can result in the player getting very, very quickly overwhelmed if they get surrounded. Next up, we've got the bug enemy. You guys ever played Binding of Isaac? You know those little annoying spider boys?
I need help. I'm dead. My hammer didn't even go up.
So yeah, we added those into our game. They're characterized by their super low health and quick jumpy movements. They also have zero anticipation animation, so they will just jump at you whenever and there's no warning. Because of this, the bug is complete cannon fodder when you've got your dash, but when you don't, they become a massive pain in the ass. And lastly, we have the two projectile enemies. They both operate pretty similarly, both being able to shoot from anywhere once aggravated, standard health, but one shoots really fast projectiles, and the other shoots homing missiles. The player is able to parry these projectiles, which actually makes them very useful for regaining your dash, especially when you're being chased down by a large horde of enemies. They're pretty useful. And with all that added in, we only had a week left of April, and we had so much work left to do. So we started grinding levels. For the world, we wanted to create a large interconnected map that would cross in on itself, kind of like Hollow Knight. I mean, I haven't actually played Hollow Knight, but I've been told that happens in Hollow Knight. So yeah. We settled with 3 biomes. The first is a sort of tutorial cave area, which teaches the player all the fundamental mechanics and eventually leads them to a large cavern, which acts as the sort of hub for the world. In this cavern, there are 2 paths that branch out either side of it, and in the center is this massive, mysterious, but very locked door that you can't go through, and it eventually leads you to the game's final boss. The player can then choose either to go up and explore a forest biome, which contains large areas and massive hordes of enemies, or go down and explore the pink swamps, where they'll be met with congested islands and heaps of traversal sections. Either way, each area eventually leads back to the main chamber, and once you've beaten both biomes, the massive locked door will unlock and lead you to the game's final challenge, which I'm not going to show you, because if you want to see it, beat the game yourself, right? With the concept down, we immediately started work. I designed the level layouts and tested a whole bunch of enemy configurations, whilst Eli designed and then added in all the environmental art. And let me tell you, this was an absolute grind. You see, each biome had about 3 to 4 rooms each, and with each room taking about 8 hours to conceptualize, design, test, and then decorate it, we started chewing through the days. Not to mention, we also had to do this on top of our actual jobs, which, you know, we needed to do because food and rent. So suffice it to say, our end of April deadline had very much come, and it had very much gone, and we were still so far away from finishing. Yo, all right. So it's about 10 p.m. I've just finished designing all the rooms. So now I'm going to start helping Eli decorating. And you might be thinking, look, decorating rooms. Come on, how long can that take? The answer is pretty fucking long. It's actually a bit of a process. So I thought I'd just run you through it. This is what a room looks like without any decorations. Pretty fucking ass, to be honest. Yeah, the first step is we just sort of go in and add all the floor tiles. So I want to start doing that now. All right, so that's the floor down. Now is the fun part where I had to meticulously go in and add in these tiny little rocks. So see you guys soon. Fuck yeah! All right, that's all the
That's all the rocks done. Now I gotta do all the water edges. And we're done. It only took, what's that? 4 hours. 4 hours. 4 hours of Anagon rocks. And you know what the good news is? I've got 5 rooms left to do, which means that I've got roughly 20 hours of Anagon rocks. 20 hours! 20 fucking hours of Anagon rocks!
And with that, the game was pretty much complete. Now all that was left to do was the final polish, which includes stuff like sound effects, music, button prompts, a whole bunch of optimizations. Basically just a bunch of small but very important touches the game very much needed. Now, you may be wondering, look, it's almost June, mate. We're at the end of May. Why is this still called April Game? And to that I would say, the game is now called Sightseeker, and it is finally done. I am so happy to have finished this project, because it is so far the only game I've ever finished and actually released, which is it's an accomplishment for me. You know, I brought down the scope from my last endeavor, not to the point where we finished it in our deadline, but to a point where it's finished. So, you know, that's improvement. And next game, next game I'll finish on the deadline, maybe, you know, we'll see. But yeah, I will warn you, this game is hard, all right? This ain't some Kirby's freaking epic yarn baby bitch shit. No, this is some Dark Souls, Darkest Dungeon, freaking Lion King level stuff, all right? So, also the boss, she is a tough one, all right? She's a tough mistress. I just want to shout out Eli from Greenbox Games really quick. The dude has been an absolute pleasure to work with. He's a super nice guy, super talented, and it's been just such a great experience working with him. So yeah, you guys should 100% check him out. I've linked his channel in the description, so check that out. He's already made a video on the game, and he's also going to be making a whole bunch of future videos, because as I mentioned before, he's doing the 12 games for the year, a game every month, and it's great content. So check him out. But yeah,